Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to the PPC Masterclass. Before we get kicked off today and I introduce our guest, I just wanted to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Aaron Letty. I am the Fulfillment Director here at Results Driven REI. I've been with Josh and Tiff for a little over 14 months now. We help a lot of people with a bunch of real estate situations, really help scale their teams, perfect their marketing, and really master the sales process. So one big thing that, I know is a huge topic of discussion is what is the best marketing channels of what you can do in today's world? With the shift in the market change, um, you know, people are asking that question a lot. So I thought, what's a better time than to bring in, the digital marketing guru, Mr. Brandon Bateman, and to just talk about, his take on the PPC world and the digital marketing world. So I really want to bring Brandon up right now and have him go through. Brandon, what's up, man? It's been a while. How are you doing, man?
Hey, good. How you doing, Aaron?
Good, buddy. Good. What's new in the world over there, man?
Let's see. What's new in the world is fall. Um, I've yeah. If you live in, I know you don't live in Utah now, but if you do, you get the pleasure of sitting in traffic in the canyons, trying to see the fall leaves and all that kind of stuff. So that's good news. And then the weird real estate market. That's the story of my life right now.
That is the world that we live in, my friend. I get the question every single day. So I'm hoping that you can come in and shed some light on some topics, and then I know that you have a presentation around digital marketing itself as a whole, some statistics to support a lot of things, and then I know at the very end we'll open up to any Q&A. So anybody that's out there that's listening or that's viewing this right now, you're more than welcome to drop any questions that you might have for myself or for Brandon, in the comments, and we'll make sure at the very end that we hit every question that gets hit in the comments. So without further ado, Brandon, I'll kick it over to you, man, and take us through and hit us with some knowledge.
All right, perfect. Just give me a moment. I'm going to share my screen here and take you through what we got. So first, a little bit of information about me for those that don't know me. I know I've presented once to this group, so if you've seen me before, I hope you'll realize that I got something different for you today. We'll mix it up a little bit, hopefully add some value in a different way. But here's a little bit of information just about me. So I live in Salt Lake City, Utah. Absolutely love it here. I'm passionate about a few things. First is my family. This is myself, my wife Madeline, and our daughter Ella in the picture here. I like adventure sports. If anybody knows what paramotoring or split boarding is, the first one's a way to fly. The second one's a way to snowboard in the backcountry. Love stuff like that. And then the third thing applies a little bit more professionally. I love using reason and data to make good decisions. So you're going to see that when, as we talk about digital marketing, the different channels you can use and all that kind of stuff. It's all reason-based, logic-based, and I believe that most companies, if they were able to do that better, would succeed on a different level than they do already. So diving into it a little bit more, this is kind of what I had in mind for an agenda. And Aaron, please feel free to interrupt me as we go along if you have anything to add. But of course, we'll have some time at the end, like you noted, for Q&A. But before then, I just want to introduce my company, Bateman Collective. Who are we? What do we do? I'll share a little nugget that we learned about acquisitions through analyzing some of our client data recently. We'll talk about PPC, Facebook ads, and SEO. What are things that people believe about those channels? Which of those are true? Which of them aren't? And then the last item here, having to do a little bit more with the market as it is now. What can you do to future-proof your digital marketing? So as the market shifts, you make sure that you're kind of staying on top of things and getting the best results that you can. So first, Bateman Collective, what do we do? We're in the world of motivated seller lead gen, which Aaron kind of alluded to. We do that through three channels. The first one, kind of the title of this whole thing that we're doing here, paid search, PPC is what some people call it. The second one, paid social, Facebook ads. They're kind of the same thing, so I'm putting both names here because I'll use it more or less interchangeably, and I want everybody to know what I'm talking about. And then the third one, SEO. So we're going to talk a little bit about each one of those and what they mean. Okay. Okay, there it is. So reasons that our clients love us. People ask me all the time, what makes you guys different from other companies? And of course, being the founder of a company, I have a list of like 75 things, but nobody cares for those. So I'll give you three. The first one here is true closed loop optimization. I think that a lot of agencies are really just focused on what generates leads. We really bring it all the way down to what generates deals. And of course, people, like, everybody's going to say they care about that. I just haven't seen anybody build a system based on that on the level that we have, where we actually track with every one of our clients which things, which actual leads are turning into deals and have different characteristics. And we pull that data closed loop into ad platforms. The point being, we have ways to optimize for lead quality that most don't. The second thing here, aggregate testing and optimization on a high level. It's something I'm very passionate about, that we can use the data from all of our clients to benefit all of our clients. For that reason, we run split tests, not just to see we're doing this for this client and that for that client, and we see who does better and kind of double down on whatever that is, but to truly test. Like an example of this being, we might, to see what landing page works better than a different landing page, we might change 200 landing pages across the internet for all of our clients to a different page, see how it performs compared to the other one for those same clients in that scenario. So half the time you go to the page, you see one page, half the time you see a different page. And because it's aggregate, we can get a lot of data a lot faster. We've done 3 or 4 of those tests just in the past couple of weeks here, where individually, if we did that for one of our clients, it might take 6 months or even a year to get enough data, especially in the quality, to say which variant works better. And then this last one being this partnership focused approach. Sometimes what I explain to our clients is that I train the team, and our culture is built around this fact that we want to make decisions when managing your account as if we were you. So we want your best interest in mind. And I think that really shows in everything that we do, that we are intended to be a long-term partner with our clients. So there's the quick reasons that our clients love us. And then here's some numbers that kind of dive into that a little bit. So why are 96% or more than that of our clients continuing with us through this market shift? This year so far, based on our tracking, we will spend over $9 million in ads. Those ads will be seen over 118 million times in the US, Canada, and Australia. And that should generate 72,000 leads, over 2,400 deals, and over $50 million in wholesale revenue or equivalent, if it's a flip, for example, to assume what could you have wholesaled the deal for. So anyways, these are just some overall numbers that we tracked across our clients, and what we hope to finish off 2022 with. So before I get into the real meat of it, I think it's always good to warm up with something that's a little bit unique or different, kind of doesn't follow the pace of the rest of the presentation. So this is something that never before seen data from our database, where I wanted to share this with you because I thought it was pretty influential and interesting when I noticed it. And it's all about appointment setting. So a little background here, like I had mentioned, in one of the unique things that we do that others don't, is we track closed loop with our clients, everything that happens with the leads. And not only do we track it, but we also take care of the implications that come from that thing. But along with that, we can kind of split our clients into different groups, and we can see how those groups perform. And one of the biggest differences that we were able to note recently is the net lead to appointment ratio. So to give an example of what these metrics mean, net leads are actual leads that you get a hold of that actually have a house to sell. So if it's just like a wholesaler reaching out, that's not a net lead. If it's spam, it's not a net lead. If it's a confused buyer, not a net lead. But if it's a person who has to sell their house, even if they're retail or they're not actually that qualified in some way or another, that's a net lead because it's an actual, it could be an opportunity. And then appointments are exactly what they sound like, except when our clients are virtual, we will call it an appointment when they go through the sales process of getting to an offer with the seller, whether it happens in person in that seller's house or not. So we decided to analyze our clients on this level. So one group of clients that has a net lead to appointment conversion of less than 20%. The other group having greater than 20%. So we basically said, what we're really trying to test here is how liberal are our clients in setting appointments? Do they qualify leads heavily, or do they assume that leads are motivated and not qualify super heavily and just bring as many people as possible through the sales process? So it's interesting to me to note how many of these metrics are really similar. If we look at what percentage of the leads weren't sellers, it's about 30% for the first group, 28% for the second group. If we look at the percent that are retail, it's about 15% for the first group, 13 for the second group. So it's really, really pretty stable. Here's where it gets really different though. If we look at the number of appointments required to get a contract, for those that are qualifying more heavily, it's 1.37, which is actually shockingly low number of appointments necessary to get to one contract. If we look for those that are liberal with their appointment setting, it's 2.31. So roughly, a little bit less than double the number of appointments needed. And I think this is a really important point, because you could say, well, that bottom group, they just have better leads. But if they had better leads, they wouldn't have more appointments per contract. They would have a similar appointment quality. What this shows is they're willing to go on appointments with people that the people in the top group aren't willing to go on appointments with. So altogether, that's a few more appointments, or almost double the number of appointments per contract. And then the leads per contract, this is the real thing that made the difference, in my opinion. This first group, about 22 leads per contract for those that set less than 20% of their net leads into appointments. However, those that set more than 20%, it's about 12.25 leads per contract. So the moral of the story here, if we're just going to put this into really simple numbers, those that are really liberal with their appointment setting tend to go on about 4 times as many appointments. From those 4 times as many appointments, they tend to close about half as many of them into contracts. But at the end of the day, they end up with twice as many deals. So they take more shots and they make more shots because of that. So anyways, this is just a brief insight that shows you that across our client base, on average, our clients are actually overqualifying their leads. Those that we see that are not qualifying quite as heavily, and they're a little bit more willing to go on appointments, they're willing to have more appointments per contract, they actually have significantly better close rates on their leads overall. I think it makes a pretty big difference. So that's it for the nugget. Let's jump into digital marketing stuff. So PPC is one of the favorite channels, of course, across the real estate investment industry. You'll hear about it a lot. So for each of these channels, PPC, Facebook ads, and SEO that we manage, I decided to put together a little collection of information here, just based on what people think, what the reality of the channel is, and then what its strengths and its weaknesses are, just to kind of get down to building the best understanding that we can together about what these channels do. So first thing about PPC, if anybody has anything to add to this list, please do. But what do people think about it? A lot of people say PPC is really expensive. They say the lead quality is great or horrible. I say that because you're going to hear both. Listen to a few people and you're going to see some really varying opinions. They say it doesn't work in my market. We worked with a lot of people that have worked with like 4 different agencies before, and they just haven't been able to make it work because their, quote unquote, their market is the problem. And the other thing being, all PPC leads aren't created equal. People talk about PPC like it's just PPC. And the reality is there's all kinds of different strategies within PPC. There's different ways to go about it that do all kinds of different things. So the reality to combat a couple of these things, PPC, there's no getting around the fact that PPC is expensive. It's a marketing channel, but I would argue it's not overpriced. For a lot of our clients, PPC produces the most expensive leads that they have, but also the highest converting leads that they have in their business. So it's definitely a quality over quantity approach. Especially when you compare it to a channel like cold call or SMS that a lot of investors are relying pretty heavily on these days. When people talk about how the lead quality is great or horrible, the reality is you can kind of see this based on our previous slide talking about the different close rates based on different criteria across our clients. Those lead closing rates vary significantly. Just so you guys know what the benchmarks are, usually 10 to 15 leads per deal is kind of considered gold standard. It's the number that I think most companies, if they are really dialed in most markets, can get to. But the reality is, I've seen people that can go through 100 PPC leads and not get a deal. Just because it can be closed doesn't mean you will close it. So the lead close rates do vary significantly. Here's the other thing about this. The fact that your team closes well or doesn't close well with another marketing channel doesn't mean that same is going to happen for PPC. Some of the worst closing companies we worked with have been companies that rely a lot on a different marketing channel, and this was kind of their smaller thing that's an addition. And because these leads are so different, their team's not used to them, they have lower close rates. And surprisingly, many of the investors that we work with that have the smallest marketing budgets and do the least deals from other channels have the highest close rates from PPC, because their team isn't, or the assumption being their team isn't tainted from other channels. So anyways, that the point is the lead closing rates can vary significantly. Just because the leads can be closed at a higher rate doesn't mean they will. They require really different management. If any of you are our clients, or are considering doing so, we do have a course that goes through a lot of insights, kind of like this one I shared in the nugget, that basically shows what does our data show about the difference between our clients that close really well and those that don't. It kind of goes tactically through that. But in any case, that can vary pretty significantly. This next one, it doesn't work in my market. Well, every market has its highs and its lows. What a lot of people don't realize about PPC, and really this is true for a lot of marketing channels, is that every month's a new month when it comes to how a market is going to perform. And sometimes they can be really competitive. Sometimes they can be less competitive. We especially see this with small markets, which everybody just assumes usually is going to be the least competitive areas. Sometimes from a PPC standpoint, they can be really competitive, and it's kind of a bubble. And eventually that bubble bursts and then it goes really low. Because PPC is an auction-based advertising channel, it does depend on your competition quite a bit. And because of that, it means that you're going to have periods of highs and lows. And generally best practice is that our clients are kind of sticking with it through those highs and through those lows. This last one, strategy and execution matter. Because people compare PPC leads, quote unquote PPC leads, and somebody says, well, I have this cost per lead on PPC, and someone else says, well, that's good, I wish I had that. But then that other person has different keywords they're using, it causes a different lead quality and all that kind of stuff. My point here being, there's a lot of nuance to this. It's not like there's just PPC and PPC is what it is. There are so many different strategies, so much granularity, so much potential in different ways with this channel. So that's where strategy and execution really matters when it comes to PPC. That's where you really want to make sure you're working with someone that knows what they're doing to help you through that process of getting it dialed in. So to go over the strengths and weaknesses here for PPC, strengths are scalable, high lead quality compared to other channels in general. The spreads can be large. For most of our clients, it tends to be 20 to 30% larger spreads that they're doing from PPC versus other marketing channels, just due to there being a higher increase in motivation for the sellers. And it's pretty recession-proof. We'll talk about that a little bit more at the end, like why I think PPC is going to do really well through a market downturn. But it's a very recession-proof channel. Weaknesses of PPC are it's hard with a small budget. And let me define small. I would say, in my opinion, small is anything less than, say, between like management fees with an agency and ad spend and everything, $3,000 a month. If you're just too low on budget, it's really hard, just because the cost per lead is so high to get any significant amount of data in any normal time frame or anything like that. So anyways, it's a little bit of a tough channel if you have a small budget. It does have a wrap-up time. You'll hear people talk all day, including our clients, about how they turned PPC on and they got their first lead and that lead was a deal, and it's just an awesome channel. And the reality is that does happen sometimes, but sometimes there's a ramp-up time. And just because PPC doesn't work in the first month or the first 3 months does not mean it doesn't work for you and your situation and your market and everything. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to dial in, and that time can be a little bit tough for some people. And then it's also competitive. And when I say competitive, I'm mostly referring to after the leads, because we've already talked about how the leads are expensive, right? Which implies competition in generating them. But once you get the leads, with PPC, there's a decent likelihood that those people are talking to someone else as well. So just getting a motivated seller lead isn't the whole game. It's also about beating out that competition, being the person who actually ends up getting the contract. And it's the reality of it is, there will be companies that are significantly better at that than others, and those are the kind that tend to do really well with PPC. So that's a brief summary of PPC and what we're seeing. Do you want to bring up any questions at this point, Aaron, or should we continue through?
Drew, I have a question. And I
Mhm.
don't even know if you know the answer to this. So, out of the people that you're seeing that are successful with PPC, do you see them having because I love the numbers of the contract, the leads contract, and the conversions there. Do you notice that the people that are doing that have multiple exit strategies, or are you seeing that they're more narrowed down into one? Or do you even measure that?
So the quick answer would be no, we don't measure that. However, I do kind of anecdotally sort of know that because I know our clients and I speak with them. I see what results they get and all that kind of stuff. I can tell you most of our clients have multiple exit strategies. I think, I mean, my honest opinion is most successful real estate investment companies these days have to have multiple exit strategies.
Yeah, I
If
agree.
you're kind of like the one trick pony, it's a little bit tougher to make it work because you've got to
Yeah.
throw away some leads.
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. And I really wanted to highlight one thing that you said. And one thing, I've noticed is that you said the consistency piece. And I know you're gonna get into this, I believe, later in your presentation. But the consistency with PPC is, whenever I'm talking to people and we're reviewing their marketing budgets, it seems like, with the large expense of what PPC has, it's usually the first thing they go. Right. And I'm a big preacher of that, you have to have consistency with something for, at least a minimum of a quarter. And that's a minimum of a quarter to really make a decision. So I don't know if you want to kind of highlight the reasoning behind that, of like why consistency is so important in the PPC realm. Because I think we all understand, the cash conversion cycle with, colder
Mhm.
leads and, as things happen in people's lives with colder leads, the way that you follow up with them is really, key and important with colder. So can you kind of allude and kind of just talk about, why it's so important to do that with PPC specifically?
Yeah, it's a really good point. Consistency, can make or break a campaign. So the way that it works when you're doing these kinds of marketing channels is you're going to start by doing a lot of things. It's not like you're just doing one thing. Like I am doing PPC. That's not how it works. It starts by you're testing a bunch of different stuff. I once for one of our clients counted, like, for example, the number of search terms that we're targeting multiplied by the number of audiences that we're targeting because people are in both, multiplied by these demographic characteristics that we can measure and target by, multiplied by, and it was like 64 billion different like subsets of our PPC strategy that existed. Like by the time you like really break it all out granularly, and that's of course a level of granularity that's just completely impractical. So we have to summarize data and we have to look at combinations between different features one at a time and stuff like that. But the reality is, and this is true for most marketing channels, there's not just the channel. That's not what you're doing. Within the channel, there's going to be other things. So if you have a 2x return, there's a really good chance that maybe half of your budget has a 4x return and half your budget has a 0x return, right? And it takes some data and time to find out those things. So just because a campaign doesn't work on a macro level doesn't mean that no part of it works. And with PPC more than most channels, because there's so many different things that you're doing within it, just by nature of how it works, there's almost always something that works. The real question is how long is it going to take you to find that? And how significant of an opportunity is that? Ideally, it's something really scalable that you can do a lot of. Sometimes it's something really small. So, and often there's going to be many things that you find that work and many things you find that don't work. So that's why that consistency is so important. And just to let you know, Aaron, like what we tell our clients, because we've been through it with enough people, so we've kind of seen like at what point does this not work, and there's kind of not much chance that it's going to turn around, versus at what point do our clients usually pull the plug too early when the reality is if they gave it more time it would pan out for them. And 6 months is kind of our rule of thumb. Usually by if we're going to find success by 6 months, it's really likely we find it. um, but we do break that into different segments because I think I agree with you, minimum of a quarter for a specific metric. The way I like to picture this is you have your higher funnel metrics. That's going to be like your number of clicks you're getting, your number of leads you're getting, and then maybe like some of the early quality measures, like are they real sellers and that kind of thing. And then you have your low funnel metrics. Some people call those first ones leading, and this second one's lagging metrics, where it's like your total number of contracts, your total number of deals, your ROI, all that kind of stuff. So we like to say a quarter for leading metrics, 6 months for lagging metrics. And the reason we do that is because you have enough data on a month by month basis to really make a few pivots to get those leading metrics in order. So if you're 3 months in and you still haven't generated a real lead, 6 months is probably not going to fix that problem, right? So like what we look at. So if a client is 3 months in, and this very rarely happens, although it has happened before. If you're 3 months in and you just can't get like anywhere close to a normal cost per lead, and the lead quality is really rough or something like that, then time probably can't fix that unless you just know what's wrong and you know how to fix it. However, if you're 3 months in and maybe you don't have the ROI you want, but you're seeing the cost per lead falling into a normal range, you're seeing lead quality metrics falling into a normal range, that's a telltale sign that you just need more time. And most of the time, that's what the case is. So that's why we say 3 months to get those leading metrics in order. Then you want to be consistent with those leading metrics over a period of time. And that consistency then brings you the lagging metrics. So we generally say it's like 3 months is the leading metrics, 6 months is the lagging metrics. And then past 6 months, we call a growth period. That's usually when you have things relatively dialed in. So most of our clients, they have this idea of this return on investment that they want, and they'll get it. But usually how it works is after 6 months, you really hit that return. Until that point, you tend to hit a good enough return to create sustainability, while you continue to improve the channel to set yourself up for success at that later point. So that's kind of the general path. Some people just skip through all the steps in like a weekend. Seen that? I had a client the other day that got their first 2 leads. Both of them became deals, and they were both good deals. And it all happened in the first weekend that they were running ads. And yeah, that happens, and it's nice and all, but it's definitely not something that you want to consider like a part of your strategy or an expectation. Take it when it comes, but if it doesn't happen, don't consider yourself lost or that there's no hope.
Yeah, that's good. I have another question. So can you kind of talk through, a common thing I hear from a lot of people too is, marketing in a really competitive market. So, what's your take on, competition in the market? How does PPC, how is that different, with the digital world versus, everybody buying, the same exact list and cold calling it and just running their chances of getting a lead in the system. What's a little bit different about, PPC, or honestly, just the entire digital marketing strategy?
PPC works so uniquely as a channel compared to what most people are used to. One thing that's really commonly overlooked, it's in the name, like PPC means pay per click. That means you only pay when someone has actually clicked. So it doesn't matter how many other people are trying to click or are trying to get those clicks or anything like that. Like, you're only paying money when you actually generate that initial result. And then if you know what you're doing, you know what percentage of those people are going to end up converting on your landing page, and you know what percentage of those can become deals and all that kind of stuff. So that's one way to kind of break through the competition. But I think of it, Aaron, kind of like the journey a lot of people have gone through with direct mail, for example. Like, years ago, you just pulled a list and then you sent a piece of mail to that list. And these days, it's a little bit harder than that, especially in competitive markets, because other people are doing a really good job. And PPC is kind of the same. So there's different aspects of it, like to just give you some examples of things that we might do that like really help to win in a competitive market. One would be like really deeply understanding what clicks are worth, because what you can do is think of it like click underwriting. People do this with deals all the time, right? You like underwrite the deal, you figure out what it's worth, and then you go and you try to purchase it at that. And then they start going to PPC and they're like, oh yeah, what's it listed for? I'll just pay that. But in PPC, just like you try to find discounted houses in the real estate market, you can find those undervalued clicks. And the way you do that is by really deeply understanding why a click is worth something or another thing. You can kind of find those undervalued opportunities in your market. And that's how you get a better return. So we find that most markets have those. You just have to kind of know where to look and how to find them. And in general, some of the most competitive markets in the United States are the ones where our clients do the best, because PPC really likes volume. So I love like the big competitive markets, just because there's plenty of people searching, which means there's just plenty of opportunities to slice and dice that data and find just the right stuff. So I would say PPC is a channel that does really well in pretty highly competitive markets.
That's good. We actually had a question pop up. Is what would you say a good time period from the moment a PPC lead comes in till you need to contact them? Actually, I want to answer this one. As soon as humanly possible. The expectation that we have within our company is not even it's just a PPC lead. It's any lead that comes in the system. We want that bad boy hit within 5 minutes, and that's a maximum time of when we want that hit. But I can tell you with PPC specifically, they are literally clicking on a link to submit information to you saying, call me, right? Or they're getting in touch with you inbound. So I would say obviously the fastest you can, I would get in contact with these people. And that's not just for PPC, that's for any marketing channel. So I'm sure Brandon can test to that. That as soon as humanly possible, like I said, we have the golden standard of 5 minutes that we want our acquisitions guys, specifically our acquisitions, hitting these hot leads with PPC. We don't even have them go through our lead managers. We have it go straight to our closers because we feel that they've already been qualified through a layer, so they don't really need to go through that deep qualification of 2 people. They've already kind of done one step of that process, and then our acquisitions managers take over and still go through a layer of qualification. But that's my take on it, Brandon. I don't know what your take is, but I'm sure it's going to be very similar.
Oh, it for sure is similar, and you kind of hit the nail on the head. I'll just add a couple little details of like what people do. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but you would be shocked to know there's even a difference in conversion noticeable between those that get to leads within 60 seconds and those that get to leads within 5 minutes. So you have to kind of reframe. I'm not talking to you, Aaron. I'm talking to anybody. You have to reframe in your mind like what is quick, right? Because it's so funny. Sometimes I talk to clients and they're like, oh yeah, we're just not converting where we want. We're so quick to get to the leads, like same day, always. And I just think in my head, like that is so bad, same day. And we have others that are just like instantaneous, like you're talking about, where it makes a really big difference. Because not only are they raising their hand saying, please give me an offer, but they just came from a page on the internet that has a list of all your competition on it and ways to contact those people. So those that do really, really well, you noted a couple of things here, Aaron. If they get to them fast and they build trust fast, because you just have to put yourself in the mindset of a seller. If I'm a seller and I have this problem, I'm going to the internet and I'm trying to solve this problem and I have a pain. That pain is what drives action. And sometimes what happens is I reach out to a company and they don't solve my pain, either because they don't reach out to me right then. So now I keep on looking because I still have my pain and I want to fix that. Or because they do reach out to me, but the person I talk to isn't someone who can actually help me feel like my pain is better. It's just someone who can maybe set an appointment for me to feel like my pain's better another time or something like that. Our clients that do really well, they get to the leads right away and they get to them with the kind of person that can make that seller feel like even though they don't have a contract in hand, their problem is solved. Because I don't know, for example, what price this is going to be sold at or anything, but I know Aaron's got me because I felt like Aaron really understood my problem and all that kind of thing. And then I feel like I don't need to continue looking for a solution because I have that bias towards this company. And I think that's super important in these competitive scenarios, both so you can stick out and so that you can beat out the competition, because building that trust early prevents the seller from continuing the search. So you kind of hit on something else there, Aaron, which is that our clients that have leads go directly to acquisitions people. They tend to convert at a higher rate on leads than if they go through lead managers first.
Yeah, and I think I hope that Josh is listening right now, because now I feel like you're challenging me, Brandon, in a really healthy way that I need to do 60 seconds versus 5
You
minutes.
said instantly max of 5 minutes, so maybe all of them are instant, and like one a month goes to 5 minutes. I don't know, but yeah. Anyways, however fast you possibly can be, because it's not about the patience of the seller, right? So maybe if it's a cold call or something, it's about their patience because they talk to someone else and they're going to talk to the new rep, and maybe they would just rather be happier, or there's a slightly better chance of contacting them. But you have to think like, how long does it take for them to click the back arrow, click on another ad, and fill out that form. The answer is not very long at all. And then you think, what if they did that before they reached out to you? And what if that company's going to call them in 2 minutes? And now I have to call them in 60 seconds to beat that company to them, even though they have 2 minutes, right? So there's just a level of urgency here that's so tight because this person's taking action in that exact moment.
Yeah, I love it. We got another question. So, would your closers try to? Sorry, it's like really far away. I can't really read it. So, would your closers try to get a contract on the initial call on these leads? So I think that breaks down on what your sales process is. For us, within our company, we're big believers of a multiple step process in making an offer. So the first layer is really taking somebody through the process, and really just making sure we're checking specific boxes, around like the property condition, any roadblocks, what's their motivation, and obviously setting expectations for the front beginning of the call and then the very end of what to expect next. So we believe in, a two-step process, and really going through and processing somebody and then going back to our financial partners, and really figuring out what we can essentially make as an offer. We've just seen that really works very well for us. It's kind of just a sales technique at the end of the day. Now, has there been times that we've made an offer, from the initial thing? I would say that, a PPC lead might be one of those offers where you can probably make that work. It's very rare that we do it though. We're just really big believers in our process. But I think it's whatever you abide to on your day to day. That's just really what we're big believers in. With big ticket, item sales, we just believe in the multiple step process. Just to really make sure that we're doing our due diligence and making them feel comfortable, in ease at the process, right? So we just don't want them to feel uncomfortable in anything that we're doing. So that's just something that we believe in.
Yeah, and I can comment to that too, and what our clients are doing. I know we have some clients that have a system more similar to what you're talking about, Aaron. I know I do see a lot of one call closes in our system as well. So it's I guess they can sometimes be closed in the first on the first interaction. I know that we have some clients that are really aggressive, like they just go straight at the leads and try to close them like right away. And they do close some, but I'm sure some people are turned off by that. Probably regardless of how many calls it takes, I can tell you one thing that I believe in. And so to get into the fluffier stuff here, we take our top 10% of closers and we interview them and their teams and we learn about their process and stuff like that. One thing that most of them have in common is they don't talk numbers early. They build a lot of trust and rapport with the seller before they get down to the numbers. Now, some of them do that all at once. It's not like they have like a multiple call step process to get to that. But those clients that we have that just go straight for the throat, right? When the lead comes in and just say, oh yeah, I'll give you this much for it. They generally, they do pick up some closes really fast, but I think on average, they're not converting quite as well. So anyways, I believe in the principle of what you're saying, Aaron, although I think it's, I've seen it done well with a single call too.
Yeah, I think you alluded to it perfectly though. I think, rapport is built through trust and credibility. And if the numbers are going to work, and they're pretty much like, hey, buy my house, we're going to go through it. So I think it's kind of a one-off, isolated scenario. But I will tell you that, PPC leads typically are, highly motivated leads. So you might run across more scenarios that one call close might work on. It's just something that we practice, within our company. So it makes it a little bit more of a scalable, coachable, teachable. And it relieves that fear and pressure of the natural sales process, which I know that's usually what people run away from at the end of the day. I know that if I input my information to go look at a car, I know that the next couple steps, what's going to happen? That's a PPC lead technically going into the dealerships. I know my phone is about to blow up, right? So we just believe in, settling people in, and alleviating that fear and pressure, from just really the sales process in general. So that's just what we have seen that's worked for us.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And I think it's consistent with what we found has worked well.
Yep.
For our clients and stuff. It's generally just, one of the biggest things that people do wrong is they tend to throw out numbers and try to qualify leads based on that. Like what kind of range are you looking for and stuff like that, which I'm aware. I know of companies that do okay with that, with like cold call and stuff like that, like different channels. It can be a form of qualification, but yeah, I think it's definitely something that our clients have in common that close really well as they build the trust before they get down to those details.
Yep, absolutely. All right, those are great questions, guys. Keep them coming in the the comment box. Any other questions that you guys have? I know Brandon has a couple other things to hit on his slides, and then we'll open it up at the very end to more questions. But keep them coming.
All right, absolutely. Well, I'll jump into Facebook ads now. So what do people think? People think that leads on Facebook are cheap. They think the lead quality is really bad. They think Facebook doesn't scale. And there's a little bit of truth in some of these things, but there's also not truth in all of it. So I'm going to talk through what is the reality of how Facebook actually performs in this industry. So the reality is that the lead costs really depend on the way they're generated. This is just like PPC. You can generate Facebook leads that are going to take 200 to get to a deal, and you can generate some that are going to take 15 to get to a deal. It's really highly dependent on the kind of strategy that you use. So this is where it's really hard to compare numbers on Facebook ads apples to apples, because it really depends on the strategy. Lead quality. This is actually really interesting. A lot of people have had really bad lead quality experiences with Facebook. Again, it really depends on how you're generating the leads. We do know that some markets tend to have better lead quality than others. So there is an element of market that matters for Facebook ads. So if anybody wants to reach out, I can give my opinion on your market if I've ever done any work there or anything. But believe it or not, long-term Facebook ads has performed at about double the number of leads to get to a deal compared to PPC. So you could say half the lead quality. However, in our recent data set, this is about the past 60 days, the lead conversion is almost as high on Facebook as it is on PPC, which is really hard for a lot of people to believe, but the numbers don't lie across our whole client base, that our clients are converting Facebook leads to contracts at almost the same rate that they are PPC recently. And recently, we've also seen an increase in cost per lead. So that is one factor to consider. The leads have gotten more expensive, but at the same time, they've gotten higher quality, which kind of changes Facebook's positioning in the marketplace a little bit. What we found is it does scale more than people think, but it does usually scale less than PPC does in any given market. So the strengths of Facebook ads, it's really friendly to smaller budgets. I know that with PPC, it's not quite as friendly to small budgets. Facebook ads doesn't really care how small your budget is. It'll work with even a really small budget. You have to hit some type of critical amount of budget to make it make sense to work with an agency or something like that. But as far as like the ads are concerned and Facebook's platform and stuff like that, it is more friendly to small budgets than PPC is. It's also, the leads tend to be less competitive. So compared to a paid search lead like PPC, those people are going to be more motivated than they are on Facebook ads. The benefit of Facebook is they didn't just come from a page that lists out all your competitors. You reach them with an ad kind of uniquely. Yes, your competitors could also target them, but their ads are going to reach them probably other days, other times, and you have a little bit of a less competitive scenario. So the weaknesses of Facebook, the cost can be pretty variable, especially this year. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster where cost per lead's been going up and down, while Facebook's platform and the total cost of ads has just been going up and down, and they've been struggling with their stock price and trying to raise ad rates, but then pulling back and all this weird stuff. So it's been a little bit up and down as a channel. The lead quality can be rougher in some markets than it is in others. And overall, Facebook is less scalable than PPC is. So if you look at companies out there that are doing really well with digital marketing, doing a ton of volume, usually PPC is a big part of that strategy, and Facebook, if anything, is a smaller part of that strategy. However, if you look at companies that have smaller budgets with digital marketing and are doing well, really commonly you'll find Facebook ads as part of that strategy. The reason is Facebook with a small budget allows you to kind of hit the bullseye of the target, versus PPC doesn't work quite like that, but there's a lot more opportunity in PPC from a scalability standpoint. So that's Facebook. And then let's dive into SEO a little bit. So SEO, people think it would be I've talked to some people who have used words really similar to this. They spent money on SEO for years and haven't gotten what they wanted, and said it would have just been more fun to just light money on fire than it would have been to spend money on SEO for all this time period. So some people can feel like SEO is a waste of money, which depending on how you do it, it can be. Other people will note that it's a long-term game, and you'll find a lot of investors that have been doing SEO for a long time, and it's a really good channel for them. And then a lot of people think it's all about what gets rankings, right? It's all about, because a lot of people don't understand all the details of SEO. It's a complicated channel. There's lots of little nuanced, nerdy things, and there's lots of ways to make things seem much more intense than they really are, if that makes sense. So it's really easy to make a strategy that's not that good look good, or to poke fun at someone else's strategy, or whatever the case is. The reality is that SEO results are excellent. On average for us over the long term, it tends to be 3 to 4 times better results than PPC with the same lead quality. But it can't be measured like other channels. SEO does have an exceptionally long ramp up compared to other channels. The results you want to come long term, the results you want come long term, but there are measures along the way to see if you're on track. So people say it's a long-term game, and I've seen people work with agencies that aren't doing great SEO work and just kind of pay them and just sit there and do that for a really long time because they hear it takes a long time. But the reality is SEO, if it's going right, there are different metrics that you should see trending at different times. And it doesn't take a super long time to know if you're on track. It just takes a long time to get where you actually want to go, assuming you are on track. So you can look at those milestones, and if you have a good understanding of that, you have a good way to measure your SEO success, even though it takes a long time to get to results. And then this last thing, how you get rankings really matters. There's people all the time looking at their friend in the market that shot up in search results or something like that. I've never seen an industry with more of what we call black hat SEO than the real estate investment industry. And black hat SEO is basically doing things that are against Google's policies to try to rank and basically try to trick the algorithm instead of just being what the algorithm wants you to be in order to get the results that you want. So how you get results really matters, because the true benefit from SEO comes long term, and companies that take cheap shortcuts don't get that kind of long-term result, versus all the companies that tend to have the best results long-term tend to be doing it the right way, not the quick corner-cutting cheap way. So strengths and weaknesses of SEO. It has a very high ROI and lead quality, which is a rare mix. What you'll see with a lot of channels is as lead quality improves, the ROI gets lower. So SEO kind of defies that. And you can actually build and own a true asset. You have a website that just generates leads organically without any ad spend needed. This is your only marketing channel that doesn't turn off when you turn your budget off, because you have an actual asset. It's like a cash flowing property. It's the real estate of the internet that you have on Google's search engine results page. The weakness of SEO, it has a really long ramp up. And with that, there's cash flow constraints. You can't expect to put $1 in, get $1 out tomorrow. It's going to take a period of time. And that means that it doesn't cash flow, which means you have to be able to have budget to set aside for a period of time before you get the return. It's also really hard to determine causation. You do a bunch of stuff. It's hard to say, why did my rankings improve or why did they get worse? There's just a lot of stuff going on. So that means it's just a really nuanced and difficult channel. And it's so hard to compare vendors. I don't know how any real estate investor chooses to work with one SEO company or another SEO company, because of that fact that causation is hard to determine. Some different strategies work short term, but not long term. There's all kinds of different metrics, and most of the time people don't know which metrics to work with. So at the end of the day, it's so hard. I truly feel bad for investors that are trying to figure out who should they actually work with, because it's nothing's black and white. It's not like you get me 10 backlinks and this other company gets me 2, and therefore you're better. I know places you can buy 7,500 backlinks for $30. That'll literally do nothing for you. So it all depends on a whole bunch of different factors. So this is where you really just have to work with someone that you trust. Often someone that someone who's worked with that's gotten good results over a multi-year period. That's probably the best way to find a good SEO vendor. So that's it in terms of the channels. I'm just going to give one last bit of advice that's a little bit more time sensitive, considering where the market's at right now. And it's a future tip. And my advice for anybody marketing right now in the real estate investing industry is to double down on search marketing. So we'll talk about that. This is your SEO and SEM being PPC or Google ads. And I'll talk a little bit more about the PPC side. I think that Google is the most recession-proof marketing channel because it's the only channel that has functions of supply and demand that work different than most other things. So let's look at that, the economics of PPC. So if you look at this, this blue line represents the lead supply. Whether the prices are, and on the bottom here we have cost per lead. So on the right hand side, it's expensive. On the left hand side, it's cheap. And then on the left hand side, on the y-axis here, we have the volume of leads generated. So this is, take you back to economics 101. If anybody went to college and remembers that, I can scratch the back of my brain and see something there. But the idea is, as the cost per lead increases, then the lead supply should theoretically increase. Something really unique about Google is it doesn't very much, because if cost per lead is really high, Google can't necessarily generate more leads because it has relatively fixed amount of search volumes. Maybe there's a little incentive, so there's a little something. However, the lead demand very much does react to cost per lead. So as cost per lead increases, demand decreases. Less investors want to buy leads if they cost more money. So this is what it looks like. And for a long time here, we've been kind of at this equilibrium cost per lead that the invisible hand, so to speak, has put us at. It's pretty expensive. But if you look at what happens in a changing market, if there's more distressed sellers, then there's going to be more people searching. So Google's supply is actually going to increase. So we can see a supply curve going up. At the same time, Google's demand is really, the demand is really likely to decrease because investors are going to be cutting budgets because of the recession and all kinds of things like that. And we've already seen this happen in a lot of markets. Other markets are holding strong. It's kind of all over the place. But what that ends up looking like, if you combine those things, is just a pretty rare economic circumstance. Not only will we get more leads, but also they'll come at a lower cost per lead. And this is what makes it so unique. If, let's just say there's a recession, and before the recession, it cost you 40 cents to send a postcard to someone. After the recession, it's probably going to cost you 40 cents. Or if it costs, a certain amount of money per dial for your cold callers, it's probably going to cost the same amount of money. Because the government doesn't change the price of postage, and wages don't change that much when there is a change in the value of those leads to you. PPC is one of the only variable cost marketing channels where the cost is truly based on the demand and the supply. And because of that, it self-adjusts. So theoretically, while there can be bubbles for short periods of time in different markets, theoretically, as long as you have a dialed-in business model, PPC can never not work on some level. Because if it isn't working for you because it's too expensive, that means that somebody else has a better business model than you because they're able to pay that price. Or everybody's wasting money, and that seems relatively unlikely. So anyways, that's the economics of PPC. That's why I'm pretty optimistic. And the safest leads to generate are those that need to sell. Recent search-driven contracts across our clients are 29% more likely to close, meaning basically 29% less likely to be canceled contracts. And that's compared to other marketing channels that our clients are using, because these people are more likely to need to sell. The reason we have lists, the reason we do any type of marketing is we're trying to find these people that have this motivation. And there's a lot of things that are predictive of that. They could be in pre-foreclosure, they could be in probate, or whatever the case is. But Google's built over $1 trillion company on the concept that what someone types into Google is more predictive of the action they're likely going to take than almost anything else. And that level of intent targeting is something that only really exists with search engines. And I think holds a lot of safety, coming into an unstable market, to know that you're at least working with leads that have come with the intent to sell. So that's it that I have there. Do we have any more questions, Aaron?
No, there's no other questions up in the box. There is one thing that I might be going down a rabbit hole with you, so bear with me. But I want to hit you with the concept of I know we talked about this last time, is going deep into a market and going wide. And what you see from the variations with all three of the digital marketing platforms, where you see them work. So I was hoping that you could kind of cover that topic, pretty briefly, right? But I think it's important to talk about, because I know there are people that go extremely wide, and they can lock up deals, but then struggle to dispo them. So at the end of the day, they're getting good leads, but they struggle with their certain buy criteria. So if you can kind of hit on like the difference between what you kind of see with your existing clients, and maybe share a success story of some of the people that you currently work with, that go deep into a market and that go wide, and kind of give an example of both.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you one example of each and also share that it's changing a little bit too. My answer is going to be a little bit different than it was last time, because with there being more inventory now than there was before, the buy box that investors have is shrinking a little bit because they used to have to go far outside their buy box to even find opportunities. Now they don't really have to go that far out. So with that, we're finding that a lot of our clients that were going pretty rural with their marketing are starting to stay out of those rural areas because they're struggling to disposition those deals. So for a long time here, inventory was low. So you just go wider and wider bet that you got lower competition. And that meant that you can get leads and deals, and then those investors would buy there anyways. And we just kept on chasing it wider and wider, and then it's kind of taking a turn the opposite direction, to where now people are wasting money in wide areas because they're not actually that less competitive. And then when you get the deal, it's also worth less or worth nothing because you can't disposition it. So I guess I would define wide not as is it far out rural or not, but also like how many areas you're targeting. Like it'd be completely different to target multiple markets as opposed to one market going wide or rurally. But just to give an example, we have a client here in Utah, one of the clients that's been working with us for like 4 years, know him really well, and they have just completely mastered the world of acquisitions. And no matter how expensive their leads are, we have had many times over the past 4 years, I'm looking at it and their lead cost is higher than any one of our other clients because Utah is just an expensive, difficult market. They have averaged though a great 5x return, rain or shine, because they have gone so deep into the market. They do things like driving by people's houses if they don't answer the phone because they just assume that it's that good of a lead, and driving by the house another 4 times if they weren't there the first time until they find a person at home. Like different level of lead management. So that's an example of just going really deep, and they deal with a super high cost per lead, but they just have such an optimized business model that they make it work. But another example is I had a client recently that had that high cost per lead, couldn't make it work. They decided to go statewide in their state instead of their one market, and they started getting triple the lead flow, and their lead conversion was great, and it improved their ROI really significantly, just because they had so many more leads. And we have a lot of clients making that switch, not necessarily to rural areas, but just to targeting more metro areas. And with that, if you can keep your revenue per lead high, meaning your acquisitions and your dispositions happens at the same level, inevitably your cost per lead goes down. So if you go wider, almost always cost per lead goes down. The only reason that wouldn't work is if your revenue per lead went down more than your cost per lead. The only reason your revenue per lead would go down is because your business is less optimized in those areas. So we do have plenty of clients that in order to improve ROI, they add more areas that lowers their cost per lead. However, they keep their revenue per lead steady because they have an equally good acquisitions and dispositions process in those new areas. And it can be an incredibly profitable business model.
I love it. All right, I got one more question for you, and this is the most loaded question, but I get to bombard you with it because I get bombarded with it from thousands of people. You ready?
Oh, fun. Yep, I'm ready.
All right. So I think everybody I talk to, the magical number of revenue that they want to get to on a month-to-month basis is $100,000. What advice would you give to those people that want to make $100,000 in this real estate business? What advice would you give them, or what kind of marketing spin would you say, hey, this is where I think that you could be consistent at what date of return?
Yeah, there's a loaded question.
Yep.
Um,
I get it a lot.
yeah, I mean, my experience with my own business, many other people I know as well, is that oftentimes that journey from zero to $1 million a year or whatever it is happens with one channel for a lot of companies. If you're in a really small market, then you might need multiple. But for a lot of people, it's really about nailing one thing, and then once you get past that point, it's more about nailing those additional things. So for a lot of people, what a lot of people don't realize sometimes is you just got to do more of what you're doing that's working, and just successfully do more of it, right? You don't have to add complexity because scale is the complexity. There's no reason to add additional complexity on top of the inherent complexity that comes with just doing more of something. So I think that a lot of people already know that path. They know how to do it. It's just boring, and they don't want to do it that way. They want to do it some new and exciting way. But in terms of in terms of how we've helped companies do that, because we worked with plenty of companies kind of through that phase. Um, you really have to get a solid idea of what some of your metrics are on a smaller level in order to scale to that. I can tell you a lot of people doing that kind of revenue seem to have 20, on the high end, maybe $30,000 in spend per month. You'll find some people pull it off lower. It can happen for sure. But anyways, yeah, it seems like a lot of people are going to be somewhere in that range. And if you're doing digital marketing, you probably have a little bit of a few channels. But ultimately, I think it's very achievable. It's just about making it happen on a smaller scale first, and then scaling it up.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that's kind of, the marketing expense of what you're talking about is typically what I see to really be, successful in that as well. So, I'm glad that our answers are right on. At least I'm doing something right. So,
Yeah, well, we're both doing something equally wrong. It could be
yeah.
that too.
I don't know, man. I see a lot of success from a lot of people, and I know you do too. So,
That's fair.
we'll say that we'll call the first one the way to go. We're doing something right.
Hmm.
All right, cool. So, to kind of wrap things up, before I finalize everything and send us away, Brandon, how can so let's say that somebody's interested in, learning more about the digital marketing platforms, between anything that you talked about today, how can people reach out to you? How can they hop on a discovery call with you? What would be the next steps for them?
Yeah, good question. I've got a slide here for it. So this is where you find us. You can use the phone number or email if you just have a question. By all means, probably the easiest way is just to schedule that discovery call. We have a link right there. So use that link and schedule a call with my team, and we'll review things. Because I've had to talk on a really general level today. Um, we would love to share information with you about your market, your situation, your processes with your company and exit strategies and what we've seen with those kinds of things. And the advice might be different for you than it is on aggregate because every situation is a little bit different. So the best way to get an idea of your strategy is really just to book a strategy call. We'll go through all those little details and build a strategy, and I think that's the first step on the path to success.
Perfect. All right, Ben. Well, we appreciate you coming on like always, man. It's great seeing you, and I hope everything's going well over there, man. Happy fall.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. Good to see you again as well.
You too, buddy. I appreciate it, man. All right, guys. So a couple key takeaways that I had from today. It's be consistent. Be consistent in your marketing spend. As Brandon talked about, you're not going to see a result and really be able to pivot where your marketing strategy is without tracking the information, tracking your data, and then being very consistent. In doing so, assuming that you have a really well acquisitions team. That's the first thing. The second thing is make sure that you're beating every piece of your competition to these leads. He said, I'm going to challenge my team 30 seconds from whenever a PPC lead comes in, to picking up the phone. We want to beat out the competition at the end of the day. So I think that's a really important thing to see. And he has a plethora of clients. So if he is seeing that, we want to be faster than the 5-minute rule of even what we have within our company. He's doing something right. So, those are the kind of the key takeaways of what I have, for today, on top of all the other information. PPC, it's an amazing channel. It's a great way to diversify your marketing. And especially whenever you want to start to, level up in the phases of business, you're going to have more and more and more channels, that you're applying. So I know that PPC, SEO, and Facebook are great ways of doing so. Just to make sure that you're giving your team all the fighting chance to get every possible deal, especially in this market. So with that being said, guys, I appreciate everybody for either watching this video, tuning in and seeing everything. We will see you guys on here next time. Hope you guys have a great week. Happy Monday, and close some deals. See you guys.